So in this third section of Unit 2, we will focus especially on spiritual healing, also exploring and focusing on an ethnographic case study from my own research fieldwork in Uganda. When we talk about miracle healing, we refer to a kind of healing that happens through supernatural occurrence. So bodily healing in this perspective takes place through mental and spiritual processes. Of course, faith, both when institutionalized religion on to other kinds of spiritualities, is central to the understanding and also to the practice of this particular kind of healing, in which spirituality and healing are strictly intertwined. To explore in depth one particular case study of spiritual healing, let me take you briefly to my own fieldwork, that is Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. To understand the case study that I will introduce briefly in the second part of this lecture, we need to first introduce the context in which this particular miracle healing takes place. With the growth of Pentecostal religions, starting from the mid-80s mainly, there has been a flourishing of deliverance centers in the country. And so this phenomenon of spiritual healing practice in these deliverance centers contributes to the pluralism and to the rise of medical pluralism in Uganda. Medical pluralism is widespread in the country, and the demand for spiritual healing is increasing despite the availability of biomedical and hospital care has been growing for the last decades. This is due mainly to the idea according to which some illnesses that hit people have a spiritual origin. These kind of illnesses should then be treated through non-Western therapies. Within this kind of therapeutic pluralism and the availability of these different therapeutic options, we see people moving and designing their own therapeutic trajectories, also in response to the specificity of diseases. So people combine these therapeutic trajectories, people combine biomedicine, spiritual healing, and other types of medicine that are usually referred to as traditional medicines. The case study I want to very briefly introduce is the case study of Mutundwe Christian Fellowship, that is a deliverance, the main actual deliverance center in Kampala. Founded in the 90s, nowadays this deliverance center hosts several thousand of visitors every day. What is important is that despite the individual problems that affect people who go to Mutundwe in order to find solution to their problems, the sessions in these center are always or mostly collective sessions of deliverance. This is to emphasize the collective dimension of care, the fact that care is to be considered within the frame of a relational process. We find two prayer buildings the smaller and the bigger one, in this deliverance center of Mutund, where you can easily also look for more information about it on Google and also for pictures. So we have the small space for beginners, those who are at Mutundwe for the first time, and who are in need of purification before entering the main building. This is the space of the so-called interior deliverance. And then we have the big church building that can host several thousands of people, and that is the space for the proper ritual of liberation. So we can see from this kind of short description that the experience of malaise in this perspective should be opposed to an experience of liberation from spirit possession. So healing is considered as equal to this experience of liberation from the possession of demonic spirits. It is very important to understand this kind of spiritual healing. It is very important to see spiritual healing as a pragmatic approach. And this is the last point I want to develop in these 3 lectures to conclude my discourse. In the course of my research in Uganda, I frequently found that people became attached to a deliverance center or to a specific healer when they thought they had obtained in that specific place a solution to their problems. This shows, on the one side, that spiritual healing is a central element in the therapeutic pluralism that is widespread in the country. On the other side, this fact highlights a pragmatic approach to spiritual healing practices, which should therefore be analyzed as a therapeutic strategy that people resort to in order to cope with various problems, including those problems for which biomedicine is considered to be ineffective. So what I want to stress here is that rather than losing importance or even disappearing, the figure of the spiritual healer in contemporary Africa has thus found new life. The medical pluralism in which these figures are located consists of 3 main elements. We have pre-colonial medical systems, often referred to as traditional medicine. We have biomedicine brought in by the colonizers. And lastly, we have systems based on spiritual healing. The 3 elements interact in very complex forms, creating a plurality of possible therapeutic trajectories that are followed by patients and by their support group, what we called in the previous lecture therapy management group. This plural offering not only provides different therapeutic options, but also a variety of interpretations of the causes of problems and of their solutions. This plural offering has to be considered as a way in which people can resort to different options in order to cope with their problems. So the use of deliverance should not be understood as alternative to clinical medicine, but rather as part of a medical pluralism in which the spiritual dimensions play a central role and in which different orders of explanation also coexist and confront each other. So that, for instance, to close, a common headache can be removed by medication. However, according to this kind of interpretation, this does not mean that this temporary removal of the symptom has eliminated its cause. So to heal in this perspective implies resolving not only the momentary symptom, but the deep cause, often identified by traditional healers and by pastors as a form of spiritual oppression.